Everyone, so in today's video we are talking Sephora Savings Event. This is one of my favorite videos to do twice a year. The event is twice a year because it's essentially a big roundup of like my absolute favorite makeup. So basically I get to sit here and blab about all of my favorite products, which is obviously one of my favorite things to do. Essentially in this video I give you speed reviews of pretty much every single recommendation I have. 90% of the time, I also give you a demo, so I really hope that's helpful. I want this video to be as succinct but also detailed as possible to really give you guys the lay of the land. I really hope it's helpful. I hope you enjoy it. Sephora is also so kindly sponsoring today's video, so before we get into all of my recommendations, which I'm looking at the pile, it's an intense one, let's talk all of the details for the event. If you're a Rouge member, you do get 20% off of your purchase unlimited during the savings event in-store and online. And when this video goes live, you can already start to shop. So it's from the 27th through the 6th. And I believe they're also doing Refer a Friend this year. So if you are a Rouge member, you can also let one of your friends shop that 20%. Then from the 31st through the 6th, VIB members get 15% off unlimited on their purchase in-store and online, and insiders get 10% off. Also unlimited and in-store and online. On top of that, they are doing 30% off for the duration of the entire event for any beauty insider, 30% off the entire Sephora collection. And I do have some absolute favorites from the Sephora collection, and I'll mention those. So let's jump into my absolute favorites, and then also make sure you're subscribed if you want to see my wish list, because my wish list video is going to be coming right after this one. Also, if you find the video super helpful, if you enjoy all of the demos and the speed reviews of all of these products, giving this video a thumbs up really helps me out. And if you do decide to make any purchases, using any of my affiliate links down below does help to, make these videos possible. So really, thank you to everyone that does do that. I really appreciate it. I'll also have timestamps down below for you all to just make this video a little bit more digestible if you want to skip to a certain category. But first we're starting off with Complexion. It feels like I start a lot of my top best of beauty videos talking about Shiseido complexion products, and this video is going to start the same way. They recently came out with their Revital Essence Skin Glow foundation, and I think that if you want a beautiful, everyday, kind of light, buildable coverage, skin-like foundation, look no further. This one is so beautiful. I've been very impressed by the way it wears, the way it feels very skin-like and looks like it's sitting very closely on the skin. It has less coverage than the Synchro Skin line, which I'll talk about in a second. So it just makes for a really nice kind of everyday product. If you're a fan of these water-based foundations that really build and kind of sink into the skin, glowy but not greasy, it's just such a beautiful product. A lot of brands come out with their everyday tinted moisturizer. I think Shiseido actually has the technology behind their foundation complexion products the way some other brands really don't. The performance is beautiful. So I wanted to recommend this one, number one, because it is a newer launch, but I also have to recommend the standbys. The Synchro Skin line is one of my top recommended products, on my channel, period, because of the way these products wear and the way they look in person. So whether you get the original or the Radiant Lifting, you're going to get a really beautiful medium coverage. You're also going to get a product that moves with your skin. So essentially, this is a really beautiful long wear foundation that doesn't crackle, doesn't break up oddly on the skin, which definitely can happen, especially if you just deal with, textural issues, if you have more combination skin as well. And I would say that if you do have combination skin or even oily skin, because I know I've recommended this and a lot of folks with oily skin also love it, the Self-Refreshing Foundation, the original, is such a beautiful bang for your buck. I also have dry skin and I can get away with it. It just looks a little bit more like satin matte on me. My favorite is the Radiant Lifting though. This is great for more normal to dry skin. It is such an insanely beautiful formula. Can't get enough. Now, this product from Seal, it's the Tint and Protect. This is a newer launch, but I have it on my face today. I've been really enjoying it as that kind of everyday, make my skin look polished but a little bit glowy. Really offers quite a bit of coverage, more than I was expecting, and it just really easily blends into the skin. It's not a very fussy item. I can just see folks really enjoying this, especially going into the winter, because it just has a kind of nourishing feel once it's applied to the skin. If you're a fan of products like the Ilia Super Serum Skin Tint, even the Bounce Skin Tint from Beauty Blender, which this is another favorite of mine, I definitely recommend this product to you. It feels like a more perfected makeup aesthetic version of the kind of tinted sunscreens out on the market. Now, I'm not saying use this in replace of your sunscreen, but I'm just saying that's what it kind of reminds me of. I would say normal dry skin, go with the one from Seal. Normal to more combination skin, I think people don't talk enough about the Bounce Skin Tint from Beauty Blender. It gives you a really polished look, and I just find that it really covers everything that I want very easily and has this kind of satin blur finish that is really pretty. Again, not a lot of folks talk about this one, but I did want to give it a quick mention because I was really using this a lot, especially more in like the spring, and it's a very good one. The Kosas Revealer Foundation is another favorite, and I talk about this a lot on my channel, but this is really good for those of you that want your skin to feel good having applied your foundation. That's one of my favorite parts about this one. It's definitely a little bit glowier, slightly thicker, but something that I really enjoy about it is my skin enjoys it, but also it kind of gives this fresh skin effect while also being a decent amount of coverage, like a good medium coverage. It's really easy to kind of build up. And if you have something like the Kosas Cloud Set, which is an absolute favorite, you guys might know I'm not a huge fan of powder. Oftentimes I just feel like in person it can really make my skin look more textured and dry. But with the right formula, it can kind of have the opposite effect. And the Kosas Cloud Set absolutely does that. So doing the Revealer foundation mixed with a little bit of Kosas Cloud Set in the T-zone, you're going to get such a beautiful polished look, but also just a non-fussy, blurred skin tint kind of effect. What you'll probably notice with a lot of my complexion products is that I'm going for like the typical kind of tinted moisturizer, but taken up a notch and giving me more overall, just like a better cosmetic feel. So whether that's it sits even closer on the skin, it kind of blurs the skin, it wears really well. Those are the kind of things that I look for. I'm really not easily impressed by complexion products at this point because there are so many, and I gotta say that those are probably my top favorites. As for concealer, the Tower 28 Serum Concealer, as well as the Kosas Revealer Concealer, these are my top two favorites. In the third spot, we have the Say and the Giorgio Armani. So let's first start off with the one from Tower 28. It is the one that I'm wearing under my eyes today, and it is exceptional, you guys. It is so, so good. If you are a longtime viewer of my channel, you just understand like how very not often I give my stamp of approval to a concealer for under the eyes. I really don't find that a lot of concealers for under my eyes can conceal the hollowness, look hydrated, and also give me good coverage. And this one manages to do it. If you have deep set eyes, if you have dark circles that are also dry, I'm telling you, this stuff is next level. It's incredibly spreadable, so thin under the eyes, but doesn't kind of set and go crackly. It is bonkers good, insanely good. I would say if you want more of a satin finish, with a little bit of crease resistance, I would go with the one from Tower 28. But if you want a touch more glow, I would go with the one from Kosas. Really, the formulas are quite similar. The Kosas is a little bit more thick, beautiful, moisturized, hydrated, concealed look under the eyes though. I absolutely love both. If you want something similar to the last two we talked about, but just a little bit less coverage, that's when I would lead you to the Say Hydra Beam or the Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk Concealer. The Luminous Silk Concealer is really beautiful as like that quick all over the face product. It has a little bit of dew. It's also a little bit more light coverage than you would typically expect from a concealer, but it really flattens out the under eyes in a beautiful way. It makes them look hydrated and fresh. And in general, it has that luminous silk quality to it, that kind of blur that I always find so special about the line. And the Say Hydra Beam is a little bit more light coverage again, a touch more dewy. The formulas are similar, but I think the one from Say just has a touch more emollients. These are not just my favorite concealers at Sephora. These are like my favorite concealers across the board. So I have basically 4 that are my top recommendations, especially for under the eyes. And then as far as like prep and set products, again, I did already mention the Kosas Cloud Set. That product, as far as powders go for setting the face, is my top recommendation. I've really fallen in love with it this year. And I think that if you are scared of powder, you're afraid of it looking dry on your skin, but you still want to kind of perfect and polish up your look, that is the one that I would recommend. And honestly, I do wish that I had it. I don't know where it is, which means I have to pick up one during the savings event. So that'll go on into the cart probably. But as far as primers go, if you want a glow, I say Merit Great Skin. This is one of my favorite beauty products, period, when it comes to prepping my skin. It's a biphase kind of liquid, and what's so beautiful about it is that it really sinks into the skin, but offers this kind of long-lasting glow. It's not a really thick, glowy product. Like, I think we're used to a lot of thick, glowy lotions with a bunch of mica, and it kind of just like makes the skin look a little bit more textured. This is not that product. This really gives you that true skincare, fresh facial look while also being very thin. It's a great balance for a product. One of my favorite items that Merit has ever come out with. Beautiful. It's also a great kind of skin saver or foundation saver. Like if you're worried about your dry skin not looking great when you put on makeup, Merit Great Skin Serum, like easy fix. Or if you have a foundation that can sometimes look crackly, like using that under it will automatically make it look better. And then of course the Bobbi Brown Vitamin Enriched Face Base. And oftentimes there are sets that you can get this with a little bit of a discount. This is one of my most used products of all time. And the reason I love it is it's just so perfect for giving you a buttery base for makeup to go on top. The makeup glides on smoother, it looks more blurred, but it's also not a crazy silicone heavy, obnoxious feeling primer. Like it really just feels like a cream. Makes the makeup kind of wear better in the sense of it not crackling off the face. It's really such a beautiful one, and I've repurchased it for a very long time, always have a backup. And then finally, my favorite setting mist is the Airbrush Flawless Setting Mist from Charlotte Tilbury. They might even have a duo set where it's like a really great deal, so I'm gonna try and leave that down below, but it is such a beautiful mist to really lock in your makeup and make it last. It does slightly mattify a look too, which for me, I actually like if I do have a little bit more of a glowy makeup look going on, but I want it to last longer. This is such a great option. It has a great fine mist, but also it's not like hairspray in a bottle. It has an elegance once it goes onto the skin. You feel the makeup locking in, but you don't feel the skin drying out. It's so beautiful. Now, keeping with complexion, we're doing blush and bronzer. I first want to start off with a product that was like super hyped up this year. Sometimes it's hard to tell if a makeup item that is hyped up is like worth it or if it's just not. But I truly think that the Rosy Glow blushes from Dior are so beautiful. Reason being is they really have a shade to brighten up and liven up a look for everyone. Just the shade selection I think is really unique. And then on top of that, the powder formula is so densely pressed that once it's on the skin, it sits in a very lightweight way. Whereas some powder blushes are like so creamy and thick on the brush that when you put it on the skin, it just kind of looks a bit stark. These don't do that. I gotta tell you, my favorite this summer was the shade Cherry. It livens up the cheeks in such a fresh way, like a little bit on the top of the cheekbone, and I just feel like like my entire look comes alive, and it kind of adds this detail of like the skin naturally shining through in this way that makes it look like you almost have less makeup on. Like you could have like medium coverage on, concealer on every blemish, and then you add a little bit of this and it somehow looks like overall the makeup look is more natural. I love products that do that. I know a lot of folks love Rosewood. This shade to me is not my absolute favorite. My first love was the shade Coral, and I also have the original shade as well, like the pink one, but Coral. It doesn't look like much, but this added again in the same area is so beautiful on a warmer skin tone. It adds this je ne sais quoi quality to a look. And then I did recently talk about Dior Mahogany over on my Instagram. This is such an underrated shade within this line. You can use this as a blotted lip on my skin tone on the eyes. You can also use it as like a sculpt, kind of a defining blush into the hollows of the cheeks. It's more pigmented and definitely geared towards more medium to dark skin tones. But personally, I think it's very versatile and honestly a product I think more people should talk about. So my first blush recommendation are those from Dior. Before we get into cream blushes, one more powder recommendation, specifically the Soft Pop Powder Blush in Creamy Peach from Makeup by Mario. I've used this one to bits and love it. I don't love all of the shades from this line, but this shade in particular has a little bit of like a fine luminosity to it. It blurs, but it also adds this light reflection quality. It reminds me of, you know, like an airbrushed finishing powder, but made into like a blush shade. So beautiful for a polished but fresh look. So beautiful. Can't recommend it enough. And as for liquid blushes, the one that I have on my cheeks today is the Pillow Talk Matte Beauty Blush one from Charlotte Tilbury. I also really enjoy Pink Pop as well. Just a really good liquid blush that's matte, but not necessarily like mattifying. It blends really seamlessly onto the skin. I think the shades are beautiful. In general, I wasn't expecting a ton from this launch, but as I've continued to wear it, I just find that it's one of those easy, quick add to the face items. Like I always know it's going to look good. And specifically the shade Pillow Talk, I just think is such a gorgeous shade, like really going to be flattering on so many people. I would say like if you've been wondering about these, if you're wondering if like the hype surrounding them is real, I would say that it is. I really enjoy them. But you could also potentially pick up one of the shades from Rare Beauty. They do have a gift set as well as a mini specifically of the shade Hope. But I think that you really cannot go wrong with this formula. It's going to last on the skin. Granted, you know, you don't need a lot, so just keep that in mind. But it spreads so beautifully on the skin. It lasts, it gets along so well with a lot of different formulas. And I think that's so key and something that I look for in makeup products in general is formulas that play really well with other formulas, because if a formula is finicky and you can really only wear it with a couple of items, like that's going out of my collection. I'm not going to reach for it on an everyday basis because, you know, sometimes I just need the makeup on the face and I need to know that it's going to look good. And the Rare Beauty blushes are definitely that item for me. My sister also absolutely loves them. They're just a really stable, beautiful formula. Since its launch, I've been a fan, and I still think it's my favorite product from Rare Beauty. Another option is the Blush and Protect from Seal as well. I have the shade Kirsty. I think it's also just a really fresh, easy liquid blush. I was actually pretty surprised with the pigment as well. Very spreadable. I would say a little bit dewier than the ones from Rare Beauty. It feels a little bit more like a glowy, creamy texture, and certainly not quite as pigmented as the one from Rare Beauty, but I would say either formula is beautiful, and to just go with the one that you kind of have your eye on a specific shade from. I do like that the one from Rare Beauty has a glowy formula and a matte formula. The one from Seal, it's just the single, you know, finish. And lastly, this has been my trick with blush looks recently. I've been doing, actually not today, I don't have powder bronzer on today, but what I've been doing is going with a powder bronzer kind of all over, almost to like set my look, I'll go in even with a powder blush, and then right on the tops of the cheekbones, I'll use the Hydromaniac Blush Glow Hydrator from Urban Decay. This is the shade Obsessed, but they have a bunch of shades, and this is almost like a glowy, watery kind of blush that kind of melts in and gives you more of a stained effect to your blush look. I think if you've not had luck with cheek stains in the past, I would highly suggest this. You also get a ton of product. The fact that you get half an ounce of this, insane. The formula is really easy to work with too. Like, I'm talking about applying a cream over a powder. It is no problem with this at all. And I find that it just kind of is so thin and skin-like. It's just such a beautiful product. And I love that it also is pretty long wearing. 2 cream bronzers, 2 powder bronzers. These are just like the ones I've been reaching for the most. I mean, my top recommendation is the one from Charlotte Tilbury, the Beautiful Skin. This one is pretty grody. But the thing is just, it looks so satin and pretty on the skin while also being a cream. So you don't have to worry about this being a cream bronzer that looks overly dewy. It's never gonna look choppy. It's never going to look heavy. It's just one of those pretty satin, fresh, real skin-like cream bronzers that is just really easy to work with. And that is what I look for in my beauty products. It's got to be easy to work with. But you could also go with one of the shaping sticks from Makeup by Mario. That's what I have on my skin today. All things considered, pretty similar formula to the one from Charlotte Tilbury. I do tend to reach for the one from Charlotte Tilbury a little bit more. It could be though because it has this great mirror. It's so easy to travel with and like do my whole makeup look with. But at the end of the day, I think go with whichever one you think has the best shade for you. For powder bronzers in specific, the one from Makeup by Mario, the Soft Sculpt Bronzer, beautiful, such a thin formula. If you really like to slowly build up your bronzer or you're afraid of looking muddy, like look no further. I think this formula is beautiful. I love this shade as well. I just find it looks really natural on me. It's a really, really good one. And in general, if you just don't like a powder product with a lot of kickback, a lot of pigment, again, you like these thinner powder layers, I would say go with this. It kind of like the formula kind of reminds me of the Dior, very thin but buildable and really melts into the skin. However, if you want a little bit more pigment, the Gucci bronzer, this is still like such a finely milled, beautiful texture, and it's more of a satin finish. Like it's not flat matte. When I just need my look to go polished very easily, give myself some shape, like I can really depend on this to give me such a beautiful bronzed effect. I love this shade. It's a little bit more pink, which sometimes I like to go for. I don't know. It's so hard to obviously recommend Gucci items when they're pretty expensive, but like now for me would be the time I would say that if you were looking at it, that 1, I love the formula, 2, it is incredibly luxurious, and 3, obviously when you can get it on discount, that's like ideal. And lastly, for highlights, any of the Beauty Light ones from Charlotte Tilbury, specifically Pillow Talk and Spotlight, are my favorite. They actually make it worth putting on a highlight. Like, you know, some highlights just feel like Vaseline at this point, but they're so thin, they really melt into the skin without it looking like a stripe on the cheekbones. They add this beautiful glassy glow, but it's not sparkly. Won't go into the metallic sparkly range, but also won't give you not enough that you're wondering where the product went. They definitely last on my cheeks. A highlight product and formula that has really stood the test of time for me. Now let's move on into the eyes. Let's first talk about what is on my eyes right now. The I Need a Nude palette from Natasha Denona. Since I've picked this up, it's been one of the only palettes that I am reaching for. It is absolutely beautiful. I did a recent video on this comparing it to the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes palette, so I'm not going to stick here for too long, but I just wanted to say that if you're a fan of a really beautiful matte formula and you love wet sparkles and you are a fan of this color story, I would say look no further. It's a long-lasting formula. The sparkles are insanely wet and beautiful. And I feel like I'm able to really finesse and build a look with this, more so than the Makeup by Mario one. In general, a ton of one and done shadows. Like this could easily be an everyday palette for the wet eyeshadow lover. Again, especially if you really enjoy this kind of color story, which I do. I love this color story. But I also love the Glam palette. Unfortunately, we've lost one of the shades, but this is also really beautiful if you love the Natasha Denona matte formula or the metallic formula. You're gonna get more wet looks with the I Need a Nude palette, but if you're really a fan of these rich mattes and you enjoy the metallic formula in general, I would say go with this one. I love having both, but I will say since having the I Need a Nude palette, I'm reaching for it a lot. But if I want more definition, 100% I'm reaching for this palette. And like, these are some of the best mattes I've ever used. And they're just very usable, which, you know, if you're gonna spend some money on a palette, you'll wanna get use out of it. Next, Groundwork palette. You could probably see, maybe, I have been using this palette to bits since I picked it up. Inspired. Like, that's the best way I can describe this palette. It is such an inspired palette. You have the cream putties to kind of build out a look, add it as a base. Then you have the powder counterpart to kind of set it, or you could do it the opposite way. I mean, I see it working both ways. The fact that you have the corresponding formulas in these shades, which again, are neutral, but also very rich and beautiful. It's so usable and like utilitarian and yet so inspired. If you are a fan of like a little bit of a shadowed wing liner, or just in general find that you are really drawn to these shades and you enjoy mixing creams and powders, I mean, this is your guy. If I'm doing an all matte look, as of recent, I've been relying on this. Bravo, seriously one of my favorite launches of the fall. And lastly, for like the big full size palette, I do have some more like quads and quinces, but the Divine Rose palette from Pat McGrath is also a beautiful option. I love that, again, you could definitely, certainly use this as an everyday palette, but this Astral shade is still like one of my favorite eyeshadows I've ever used. And I will say, as far as matte formulas go, it's a pretty beautiful one, and it's kind of like, it's difficult to make it not look good, if that makes sense. So it's luxury, but you can tell. Let's talk about some like trio and smaller palettes. I love my Dior palettes. The New Look palette as well as the Soft Cashmere palette are the ones that I get the most use out of. And the reason I love it is it's just so easy to get an everyday look with them. I would say if you like smokier, go with the New Look, especially if you love like a smoky glossy eye. You want something a little bit more grungy. I mean, I've done some of my favorite looks I've ever done is with this palette. You can also use like the brownie taupes as like a one and done. One of my favorites for sure in the first palette that I got. So again, if you want a little bit more dramatic or just like a little bit more definition, I say go with the New Look. But if you want something a little bit lighter, I would say go ahead with the Soft Cashmere. The Soft Cashmere is still a little bit more cool toned. I love this shade. It's just one that I always call back to. The shimmers are so wet and fine in here. You have this beautiful matte that is like great to define out a look. But even if you just used the brown with a little bit of the wet sparkly top coat on top, it's just such a classic polished, but you know, adds that little bit of glitz kind of item. My least favorite and the newest one is the Mitza palette. I would say definitely great for a warm skin tone and great for someone with green eyes. I happen to have more of like a slightly neutral skin tone, but I do have green eyes and this looks amazing on my green eyes, but it's just like not the color story that I am drawn to a lot of the time. But you can see it has like a gold sparkly top coat instead of like the lighter white one. It is a beautiful palette. It's just like the color story for me, if that makes sense. Also, the Kaja Beauty Bentos, so beautiful. I have a lot of them. I would say if there's just a particular color story or sparkle that you really enjoy, I just wanted to throw out that I do really enjoy the quality of those. And I like how small and like, they're just great for someone that gets overwhelmed by a larger palette. You're able to build out a full look with a bit of definition, with a bit of sparkle sometimes, I mean, depending on which one you get. And the quality I just find to be really good. Let's talk about some single shadows. Now, Urban Decay is releasing new Moondust shadows. I already did purchase them and they're on the way. They should literally be here like tomorrow. but I'll leave a link to them down below. But just know that Lithium and Space Cowboy are the ones that I've loved for a very long time, have been talking about them for years on my channel. If you are a fan of that wet, glossy sparkle that you guys know I love so much, these are just two staple recommendations. If you want like a one and done wet sparkle, smoky eye, Lithium, I think, is still so underrated. I don't know why more people don't try it. Obviously, like Space Cowboy is just so beautiful for every day, but Lithium, just for me, if you're into that cool toned, taupey, wet, glossy eye, look no further. And also can be paired with any like matte eyeshadow palette in a very similar way that Space Cowboy can. And Space Cowboy is beautiful to add just that wet, pinpoint sparkle to a look. You can do just a little bit of sparkle, or you can go full on glossy eye. Beautiful peachy translucence of it makes this so usable within a bunch of different looks. You guys know how much I love these, how much I recommend them, and that definitely isn't changing with this video. Another product I wanted to recommend are the Kulfi shadows, the Zari eyeshadows. So Bronze Brocade has been my favorite from this year. It's more of a kind of wet mousse texture, and I've been finding that I really like it because it lasts really well on my eyes. So if you want something that's a little bit more long lasting, like a little bit more long lasting than, you know, like a Charlotte Tilbury Eyes to Mesmerize, I think you might have better luck with this formula. And there's also these fine, like more wet looking sparkles throughout here. It also sets on the eyes really well. Also this shade is beautiful. It's gonna look great on everyone. I just find when I don't know what to do with my eye look, going for a one and done shadow like this is what I've been doing. One of my favorite pickups from this year as far as eyeshadows go. I also picked up a Sinatra Sparkle, but I haven't tried it out yet. So I need to definitely do that, but that's more of a pinky shift. Bronze Brocade is more bronze. Speaking of making eyeshadows last longer, I think the savings event is a great time to go ahead and pick up a liquid or a cream matte shadow to make any of your eyeshadow looks last longer. You guys know that that's how I do it. I don't really use eyeshadow primers as much, but when I add a little bit of some of these matte shadows I'm going to talk about into the crease, it makes the entire look last longer. The Merit Solo shadows are a great option for that. They come in a ton of different beautiful neutral shades. This is especially really good if you're prone to really having an oilier eyelid and you want to deal with this more potted, putty kind of texture. These are going to be really good for you. You could also go with one of the Color Fix nudes from Danessa Myricks, or you could also go with like her other metallic formula if you wanted to, but the nudes are a really, really good option. They're more of like a paint texture. Add this into the crease. It's going to make all of the makeup, all of the eyeshadow you apply last so much longer. Really beautiful formula from her. Now from the Sephora collection, you guys know these are like one of my favorite single shadows that I own. They're the colorful shadows from the Sephora collection. I have a lot of different favorites. I'm gonna leave up swatches of like all of the ones I have because I have quite a few. Twinkle Twinkle is beautiful if you love a more wet looking eyeshadow. Again, I love that these are 30% off during the savings event. Just such a nice kind of everyday wet glossy look. It's kind of like, it reminds me of Space Cowboy, but just taken down a notch if you just want it to be a little bit finer, a little bit less wet looking, more of like a kind of everyday soft wet sparkle. Love that one. And Choco Excess also is another favorite, another beautiful taupey brown, gorgeous wet looking sparkle in this one as well. Those are my top two recommendations though. I love Fantasia as well. There's so many pretty shades to choose from. I think a lot of people are sleeping on those single shadows from Sephora collection, but I certainly am not. And lastly, the Hourglass Scattered Light in the shade Ray. I also love the shade Smoke. This one has broken a little bit on me, but here's the deal with these. Ray essentially was like the only eyeshadow I wore in the spring. Such a beautiful, warm, sparkly, one and done shadow. If you love a little bit of a warmer champagne, you want a touch more definition, you want a little bit more richness, opposed to something like Space Cowboy, I would lead you towards Ray. It's beautiful on its own. It's beautiful paired into a look. Smoke is gorgeous too if you want just a taupey, wet looking eyeshadow. The formula, it's so like such a sophisticated sparkle, very fine. The shades are so nuanced. Hourglass does shades really well, I've found. Such a beautiful, beautiful formula. And for the lashes, my top 2 recommendations are the Shiseido eyelash curler. Please, if you have not bought like a good eyelash curler, the Shiseido one is absolutely beautiful. Highly recommend. It holds a curl. It will be more gentle on your eyelashes. And in general, I've just found it to be a game changer when it comes to my eye looks. Like, if you want that extra oomph, try it. It's bonkers good. I've used it for years. And then the Tower 28 Make Waves mascara. Such a beautiful mascara because you can take it from everyday to really voluminized. It's like a really sky high effect. I get a ton of length. I get a really wide-eyed effect, like it fans out the lashes really beautifully. I don't think I've gotten this many compliments on my lashes since I like started using this. It's definitely one of the best mascaras I've ever used in my life. And I have always been like a lover of drugstore mascaras, but this one 100% is worth spending a little bit of extra cash, especially when you have the discount going. Like, it's gonna be one that I stock up on. Bonkers, beautiful, so good. Next, let's talk about lip products. So the Hourglass Volumizing Glossy Lips, probably my top recommendation during the savings event because they're so freaking beautiful. The shades. For me, it's really as polished and beautiful and sophisticated and luxury as a glossy lip can get. I'm like just saying it now. You can see in the demos, they just envelop the lips in this beautiful balmy formula that's never sticky. And yet they also offer this very, very subtle tingle. It's really not something I think anyone needs to be worried about, but just the level of pigmentation, it's not really rich so that you kind of get like a line between your lip color and the product that can kind of look awkward. They mesh so beautifully into the lips. They're comfortable, but they're also glossy and they're also really hydrating. One of the best lip products I've ever used. And obviously, like during the savings event, you get the discount because they're more expensive, but I'm telling you, they're just some of the best. And I think they also have a duo going as well. No matter, I think, if you're looking for a liquid lip balm, if you're looking for a beautiful lip gloss, or you're looking for a very, very subtle lip plumper, it kind of like checks all of the boxes. Again, like holy grail formula. I think also the Tarte Maracuja Juicy Lips are a pretty similar formula, but the shades aren't as great and I don't like all of the shades. However, if you have been looking at the shade Honeysuckle, it has worn off on my lips. I added a little bit more. I would absolutely recommend this one. The kind of blackened pink cherry shade. You guys know how much I love these shades, and this is a beautiful formula. This one has more tingle. So if you want more tingle, again, the one from Hourglass is more of just like a mint. This is just mint with a little bit extra tingle. At least for me, I mean, it kind of goes away like right after you apply it. But I do think if you're into that cherry cola, black cherry effect, you like these glossy balm textures, this one from Tarte is beautiful. I lost it and I picked it back up, if that means anything. I really love it. Another product I've been loving, oh my gosh, since I picked it up, the Refi lip blushes. It's essentially like a really beautiful blotted lip, and the shade Canyon in specific is freaking stunning. So, so good. Really was not expecting to love this as much as I do, but it's really like the perfect, I didn't try bold lip. Like, you know, sometimes I get scared of a bold lip. Like I'm afraid it's gonna take over a look. I'm afraid that people will look at the lip before they look at me. I guess that, you know what I mean? This is able to give you that blotted lip effect in a color that is more bold and yet somehow still feels like kind of approachable for my everyday makeup bag, but they also have like other more like typical wearable shades. Honestly, I think dark skin tones in Canyon, insanely beautiful, especially if you like a cool tone. But I also have the more terracotta shade and it's beautiful, like so pretty for fall. One of the only silicone rich lip products that I've actually really loved. They really did the formula right with this one. You want more of a satin lip color, just the perfect everyday lipstick formula. Merit Signature Lips, I talk about these so much on my channel, but the shades are insanely polished, so dialed in, and each one just has that little bit of like, I can't dupe it kind of quality to them. Like the shade Tiger, it's like, yeah, it's a little bit more of a red, brick red. Then it kind of goes a touch brown sometimes when you pair it. So I just find that if there is a specific shade that you love from the Merit Signature Lips, I understand why. Like, they're so unique, and then the formula is such a great goes with everything formula because they're satin, it's that middle of the road formula, it's buildable, but it's not like insane pigment all over the lips, so you could like easily apply this without a mirror. It's not really glossy, which sometimes you just don't want a glossy lip, but also it's not that like insane matte formula that, especially going into winter, can just be not forgiving. It's just really one of my favorite lip formulas. I also love Fenty Hot Chocolate Heat. Have talked about this for a long time, but in general, the Fenty Heat formula is one that I definitely recommend if you want a plumper that gives a good tingle, but it's not irritating on the lips the way some other lip plumpers like can make my lips look literally sick. The shade is also insanely beautiful. The cool kind of almost taupe brown. This will add beautiful edge to any of your lip looks. Such a beautiful shade for the fall and winter. I use it all year round, but I wanted to call this one out. I know it did go viral earlier this year, but I've loved it since its launch, and I definitely think it's worth the hype. Another more viral lip product, the lip oils from Rare Beauty. These are not lip oils, they're lip stains. But if you want a lip stain that has a little bit of a glossy effect when you first apply it and then goes down to more of a matte look, I think they're really good. I think especially going into the winter, I just find that sometimes I want more of that stained effect. And these are also a beautiful option. I believe Rare Beauty does have a gift set where you can get a lip liner as well as one of the lip oils. It definitely is a good deal, especially with discount. If you're very fair and you have more fair lips the way I do, the Nudist lip liner from the Sephora collection, it's their Color Rouge gel lip liner. This is so good for adding that like touch of shadow. It kind of acts as like the most natural overlining that you could possibly get. It's more of a cool tone taupe. You're not going to really notice it necessarily. You're going to be like, I don't know how much this is really going to do anything. But you can overline, and then when you add the lipstick on top and like the full effect, you're like, whoa! Definitely a hidden gem from the Sephora collection. And again, 30% off. And lastly, the lip cheats from Charlotte Tilbury. Not going to stay here for too long. I have Iconic Nude on my lips, and it's really good for just more of a cooler tone, but like Pillow Talk, the original shade, is amazing, and Charlotte Tilbury has a ton of gift sets that include like a full size, so I will try to leave a couple, like some of my favorites down below. But it is a fan favorite for a reason. Like, lasts really long, looks so natural on the lips, never choppy or drying. And lastly, I wanted to talk about some odds and ends. So I have hair, I have fragrance, which I'm very excited about. I also have a little bit of skincare. You know I'm stocking up on this. I have to mention the best dry shampoo that I've ever used. It's the Living Proof Advanced Clean Dry Shampoo. Seriously, you guys, like when my hair looks insanely greasy, like wet dog greasy, I can apply this and all of a sudden it looks like I actually washed my hair, which a lot of brands say they do that. This is the most lightweight, non-chalky, non-white casty formula I've ever used. It's also not like textured, gritty in the hair either. Seriously, during the savings event, it's the best time to pick up something like this, and they also do have sets available as well. So I'm going to try and leave a set down below. Within the gift sets, usually you get a little bit of a better bang for your buck, but just know, Advanced Clean Dry Shampoo, best one on the market, and that's coming from someone that gets an oily scalp. Another top hair care favorite, if you're someone that like a lot of hair oil can make your hair look pretty greasy pretty fast, using something like the Wow Dream Coat, I would highly recommend investing in. One, it acts as a heat protectant. You can use it like every 3 washes. It adds this insanely glossy kind of effect to the hair without it weighing the hair down, which I find that some heat protectants and hair oils can do. Such a beautiful, long-lasting, glossy effect that's very lightweight. For me, it's really hard to impress me with hair care, and this has absolutely impressed me and is definitely something I would repurchase. And it looks like I'm gonna have to because I'm almost out of that one. All right, let's talk fragrance and then I'll get into skincare. One of the best wintertime fragrances, By the Fireplace, Maison Margiela, beautiful. It's the sweet chestnut campfire smell. It's sexy, it's warm, it's cozy, but sophisticated. Such a great balance of bitterness, like that kind of sooty bitterness of a fireplace with the warm sweetness of like toasted marshmallow. Such a beautiful one for this time of year. I've had this bottle for forever because it lasts so long. You need like 1 spritz and you're good. So highly recommend. I love that one. And also my sister loves it too, and she's gone through like the travel size that I gave her. Another favorite from this year, Kayali Yum Pistachio. Insanely good. I love it so much. To me, it smells like cotton candy grapes is the best way I think to describe it, but I definitely get a touch of pistachio, but it's more kind of sweet vanilla cotton candy. But you know, if I heard cotton candy, I'd be like, I don't like that. But like a creamy cotton candy that doesn't read too juvenile on me, definitely has that kind of marshmallow cream to it kind of smell. Always get compliments when I wear this. Like if I'm wearing this, someone's like, oh my gosh, Amanda, you smell amazing. One of my most complimented fragrances that I have. I've used so much of it already, and this is not including the travel size that I completely went through before I bought this. 100% one of my favorite pickups from the year. Another one that I'm going to be picking up is Fleur Father Figure. I have had this for maybe 2 months since the launch, month and a half. I'm completely out of it. This is one of my favorite fragrances of all time. What a unique, impeccable fragrance. You guys can obviously tell I'm really excited about it. Perfect for the winter. It's musky. There's definitely like an evergreen note to it, but the undertone is more of a dialed down musk. For me, it just reads as sophistication. It's one of the first like musky sandalwood fragrances that I have ever loved because of how unique it is. It's edgy, but it's warm, it's inviting, I don't know. It's, again, one of my favorites and will be purchasing the full size. Also, Fleur Missing Person, which I have the full size, like a credit for the full size, and I haven't gotten it yet because when I went to go in and get it, they didn't have the full size available, and then I ended up picking up another travel size because I didn't want to be without it. If you love that your skin but better smell, that fresh laundry, close, like sleeping in, sexy kind of smell, this is it. It just is like, you smell amazing, not your fragrance smells amazing. One of my most used fragrances of all time, and I don't want to be without it. Like as far as Fleur goes, these are like, they have blown me away with these 2 fragrances. They're absolutely gorgeous. Honestly could not recommend those 2 enough. A longtime favorite is Dior Hypnotic Poison. If you want to go with something a little bit sweeter, it's just root beer float. Oh, it's so good. I've used it for a very long time. It's like root beer float with a touch of My Little Pony, like that kind of My Little Pony sweet smell. It's beautiful. If you love a gourmand and you want one that's pretty unique, this one is very unique and one that I've loved it for so long and I've repurchased it quite a bit. And lastly, we have a couple from Dead Cool. You guys can see I've definitely gone through this one. This is Tarte. Tarte is so good. It's a great kind of sultry vanilla musk that feels really sophisticated. It's bergamot, vanilla, and amber. I think that's so true because a lot of like straight amber and bergamot I can't do because it kind of makes my head hurt and like it's just so intense. The vanilla, like that rounded vanilla note, just is addicting. And for me, it feels grown up as well. So Dead Cool Milk, this is a layering fragrance, really good if you just love that extra creamy note to a fragrance. Like, for example, if you just wanted a little extra cream from like father figure, like these paired would be bonkers insane. For me, if you really want to build a fragrance that isn't dupeable, you know what I mean? Like your own signature fragrance, buying this and adding it to any of your fragrances, like that's how you do it. At least that's how I feel like this works the best. So good with layering. And lastly, we have some skincare. I first wanted to say, over the past few months, I've been dealing with some more hormonal breakouts, and I picked this up on a whim. It's the skin clearing treatment from Paula's Choice. If you deal with hormonal breakouts in specific, like in this kind of area, just those like deeper pimples, benzoyl peroxide works a little bit better than salicylic acid does for those kind of breakouts. And this has been such a gentle but effective gel to take care of those. It's really been effective and I'm very pleased with it. You get a ton of product too for like the price. Paula's Choice does great skincare, and this is definitely one that I would recommend specifically for those more like nodule pimples, which are so frustrating. Speaking of some frustrating things, also highly recommend the High Roller from Topicals. This is my second one. So good for ingrowns or just like razor bumps in general. I use it on my armpits, on my bikini line, and it just takes care of it in like 2 days. Easy to like, I think sometimes skincare just needs to be easy. And the fact that this is in a roller, I can roll it on before bed and it kind of takes care of itself. It just is so quick and easy and very effective. Love products like that, and that's why I've repurchased it. The best eye patches. All right, going into the winter, like I feel like my eyes get really tired. This is such a good eye mask from Wander Beauty. The baggage claim eye masks, the best that I have used, and a beautiful gift. Like everyone loves a face mask or an eye mask. Really worked to depuff the eyes. So hydrating, sits so closely on the skin so it's not like rolling off, and really, really works. Like instant depuffing. Some of the only that I purchase, really. Those are all of my Sephora Savings Event recommendations. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will leave links to all of the products that I talked about and list out all the products that I recommend down below. Again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching this video. I know it was a long one, but I really hope it was helpful. So if it was, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. If you enjoyed the in-depth reviews, I would love for you to subscribe. So make sure to subscribe before you go. Thank you again to Sephora for sponsoring the video, and I will see you guys in my next one.